Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Mary Lazare and I proudly serve as the Principal Deputy Administrator for the Administration on Community Living. And we are really happy to have all of you here today to help us celebrate this is kind of the closing event celebration for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So I want to tell you we have a great lineup. So when that baseball thing, you know, that's pretty good, right, to say lineup. So we have a great lineup that we're looking forward to learning from. This is a cast of all-stars here today, and all of them are people who are going to be able to share experiences with all of us, experiences related to employment, people with disabilities, and the breadth of their experience is going to be amazing to you. So to open this celebration today, I'd like to welcome the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. And now it's my pleasure to ask you to remain standing and introduce Lindsay Teal for singing of the national anthem. Lindsay is a policy advisor in the Department of Labor's Office on Disability Employment Policy, and she is a policy advisor who's working on something new and interesting, and that is the area of self-driving cars and how that may open the potential for people gaining employment, people with disabilities getting to and from employment. Lindsay.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. And Lindsay, thank you very much. This is another example of why they never asked me to sing. Darn, darn, darn. Well, now it is my great pleasure to introduce Lance Robertson to you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I wanted to keep them here, I guess. Very nice. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Lance Robertson to you. Lance was appointed the Assistant Secretary on Aging on August 11th, 2017, so been here a little bit of time now, and serves as well as Administrator for the Administration for Community Living. His vision for ACL focuses on pillars that he has shared with many audiences that he has had thus far, and I'd like to share them with you very briefly. 1, connecting people to resources they need to live independently. 2, strengthening the aging and disability networks. 3, supporting families and caregivers. And 4, protecting rights and preventing abuse. So let me share a little bit more about Mr. Robertson. For more than 20 years, he has served in the aging and disability arena of work, managing systems in the state of Oklahoma and serving as the state director in Oklahoma. And his leadership also includes work with organizations like NASHWOOD, the National Association of States, United on Aging and Disability. Mr. Robertson earned his undergraduate degree from Oklahoma State University, which I don't hold against him, and he remains a very faithful fan to Oklahoma State. He earned a Master of Public Administration degree from the University of Central Oklahoma and is a veteran of the United States Army, and it is my pleasure to introduce Lance Robertson.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, good afternoon. Are you glad to be here? We're excited you're here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy Wednesday to join us for what we know is going to be an outstanding event. As Mary said, we're just so very happy that you are with us here today. And really a special thanks, of course, goes to everyone here on stage. These are the folks that you're here to see and to hear from, and we're just so grateful that all of you are here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. At the Administration for Community Living, we have a vibrant workforce that benefits from the diversity of experiences contributed by people of all backgrounds, including many people with disabilities. Unfortunately, we are far from typical, and it's a sad fact that people with disabilities are far less likely to be working than their peers. The latest data from the Employment Policy and Measurement, Rehabilitation and Research Training Center indicates that 33% of working age people with disabilities participate in the workforce compared to 77% of their non-disabled peers. Why it matters. When people with disabilities don't have opportunities to work, we all miss out. People with disabilities miss out. Employment in integrated settings and at competitive wages offers a direct pathway to greater independence and self-sufficiency. And research suggests that people with disabilities who are working are happier and healthier. We also know that employers miss out on a larger and more diverse talent pool to pick from when hiring. Workers with disabilities can bring unique perspectives, creativity, and loyalty to the workplace that can boost a business's bottom line. And then finally, as a country, we miss out. We miss out when people with disabilities don't have a chance to contribute as colleagues, business owners, and taxpayers. And we just cannot afford to let that happen. And that's why we're working with our partners across the federal government, state and local communities, partners like all of you, and the people on the stage with us today, and then certainly people with disabilities, to identify and then demolish the obstacles that keep people with disabilities out of the workplace. As most of you know, there are many issues that make it difficult for people with disabilities to work. Inaccessible workplaces and a lack of accessible transportation are two of the primary issues, but frequently the highest obstacle to employment are not physical. Too often our systems have given people with disabilities every incentive not to work instead of helping them thrive in the workplace. Of course, solving that problem is not directly part of ACL's mission or is not directly in our lane, but it is certainly an important advocacy issue for all of us. And we are seeing promising things happening. For example, the Medicaid buy-in program, some of you may have heard about, gives states the option of developing a Medicaid benefit group for workers with disabilities whose earnings prevent them from qualifying for traditional Medicaid. We also have far too many people in too many places who could be employable if they had the right supports and skills training, who are instead participating in day programs that are not helping them work towards employment. Other obstacles really boil down to incorrect assumptions. For business, as an example, for businesses often they believe that reasonable accommodations are going to be difficult and costly, and yet research shows us that nearly 60% of all workplace accommodations are actually cost-free, and the rest average only about $500. So really not the inhibitor that so many businesses believe it to be. And of course, one of the biggest issues is the presumption that people with disabilities cannot work or can't work in the same kind of jobs people with without disabilities have. Too often, the individual strengths, skills, and talents and potential of people with disabilities is sadly underestimated. This is particularly true for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We know that high expectations and high accomplishments go hand in hand. But children and young adults with disabilities are often not encouraged to succeed in the same way their peers without disabilities are. Too often, employment is just simply not built into their plans for the future. And again, that is unacceptable. But it's not all bad news. We're excited to see things, and I've got multiple examples here. Things like employment first thinking, which is gaining traction in more places. And employment first systems start with the presumption that people with significant disabilities are employable, which is a completely different way of thinking. Employment first systems are structured to help people with disabilities develop necessary skills to gain competitive, integrated employment and connect them with the necessary services and supports to succeed in the workplace. A lot of the employment work we do at ACL is geared toward advancing that kind of systems change. Employment first should really be the default thinking everywhere. We're also encouraged to see employers and industry getting involved. Today, we're going to hear about how the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society has been working with Major League Baseball to advance disability inclusion, both on and off the field. Through their partnership with ODEP, they have done some outstanding things. And I'm not, of course, going to steal the thunder, but we'll hear about all of that here momentarily. A third example of some things that are going well that we're excited about, we have a program called Project Search, a year-long school-to-work program led by local businesses that offers classroom and on-the-job training in an integrated workplace. Project Search began in Cincinnati and now operates across the country, often with the support of ACL grantees. So there's a lot of great things happening. What we have to do now, of course, is harness the momentum of all these initiatives. We need to share the best practices and lessons learned, and then we need to encourage other organizations and systems to make employment the first and preferred option for people with disabilities. I know a lot of you in this room are already working hard to help make that happen. Since confirmation on August the 11th, I've been meeting, as Mary said, with advocates and grantees in both the Aging and Disability Networks and sharing with them what we are calling our pillars, the fundamental things we're going to focus on during this administration. As Mary mentioned, the first one is connecting people with resources. And we have to do a better job of helping people, when in need, find the right services and supports and help them navigate the systems that are out there. The second pillar is protecting rights and preventing abuse. I believe, and I'm sure you do too, that everyone has the fundamental right to live their life free from abuse and neglect. The third pillar involves supporting caregivers. And I think when older adults and people with disabilities need support to live independently, most often that support is provided by families. So support to families is a critical component for supporting community living. Strengthening our networks is that fourth pillar. How do we continue to equip our aging and disability networks, who are the backbone of our current service delivery system, to compete and thrive in the rapidly changing healthcare environment? So those are the original four pillars, and we realized that we really needed to add a fifth pillar. That fifth pillar we're announcing today is expanding employment opportunities, which of course is already a focus within ACL, but one that we're going to certainly heighten as a priority. and we are excited about what that will mean, and I want you to know that that ACL is absolutely committed to working with all of you on this pillar, and we all believe that is so very important. So now it's time to talk about baseball. It's my pleasure to introduce Mark O'Neill. Mark is president of the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society and director of the medical administration for the Chicago Cubs. He just shared that his son signed with the University of Oklahoma. And if you don't, oh, no, that was not prompted. I'm an Oklahoma State guy, and this weekend is Bedlam. Of course, I'm a big football guy, but I'm proud that Mark's son is going to sign with a great program. University of Oklahoma has a great baseball program. He joined the Chicago Cubs in 2004 as head athletic trainer and was promoted to his present role in October of 2012. Mark also spent 15 seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals and had the honor of working the 2009 All-Star Game in St. Louis. Mark is a certified member of the National Athletic Trainers Association, a member of the Missouri Board of Healing Arts, and a member of the National Strength and Conditioning Association. As PBATS president, he reinvigorated tobacco education in baseball and established PROTEP, a professional tobacco education program. A graduate of the University of Arkansas, he also has a private pilot's license and enjoys flying with his sons, and apparently will be making many trips to Norman, Oklahoma. So with that, we're very, very glad to welcome to the microphone Mark. Did you say right there? Yeah, absolutely.
Can you hold it? Yeah. Stay on. There we go. Perfect. Can you hear me? You did notice that he did not say my wife does not fly with me. To start off with, again, PBATS is the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society. Athletic trainers take care of the health and wellness of the players, both at the major and minor league level. We are an educational society, and in the beginning, I think that it's important to start off with is that that was a huge when I took on when I was elected and fortunate enough to be elected president of PBATS, we were really considered an educational society, and one of the things that I really wanted to drive within our system was community outreach and being more active in the communities, and the board that we have is incredible. And I want to take a few minutes just to recognize the board members that came in. We have Tom Probst from the Colorado Rockies. He is our treasurer for PBATS. Brian Ball with the Chicago White Sox, good friend of mine. He's assistant athletic training rep, American League athletic training rep for the executive board. Nick Kinney, he is with the Kansas City Royals. He is the American League head athletic trainer rep. And Ron Porterfield with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, whatever it is now. And he is the secretary for our society, as well as, and I can't be remiss without, and literally this has been my mentor through this process of being the president, Neil Romano, who I'm sure everybody in this room is aware of. You know, all afternoon people have been thanking us for coming here and thanking, showing our appreciation. And I'm going to slow down because I'm not a public speaker. You did such a great job. But it's not, we're thankful to be here. We're honored to be here. I'm honored to be here. And there's no way that we would have not made it. And thank you very much. The Professional Baseball Athletic Training Society and all of its members are honored to be here. To join with the Office of Disability Employment Policy and the Administration for Community Living, ACL, I'm going to go with that, that'll help me out, to recognize and celebrate the importance of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. 4 years ago, PBATS decided that the game of baseball is full of people with disabilities. We're full of people with disabilities, not only on the field, but in our front offices, staffs, everything. I mean, it's all over the game, and we want to get that out. PBATS believes strongly that it was and is extremely important to tell stories of successes in baseball by people with disabilities. Because of PBATS, we believe that when given a chance to work, everyone can exceed. At our core, we know that everyone should be considered for what they can do, not for what they cannot. Shortly after we started our ability to transcend challenges, I don't know if you know the acronym for our licensure is ATC, Athletic Trainer Certified. So Neil was very savvy when he came up with the Ability to Transcend Challenges program to promote inclusion in the workplace. Jennifer and the ODEP team joined us in an alliance to share this message with American people through several public service announcements, through programs and events. These important messages feature Major League Baseball players, some you'll hear today, who have demonstrated that people with disabilities can do amazing things, do amazing things in the workplace, and just simply when they're given the opportunity, and that opportunity is well deserved. Working with the ODEP team, it's extremely important and a huge piece of our success in spreading this message throughout the nation, and we're completely dedicated to that. I know I am, and I know everybody that's in this room is. Our ultimate goal is to demonstrate to the American people that everyone does deserve a chance to work, and we've worked hard to talk about this issue in baseball, outside and inside the game. Today, we're extremely thrilled to have two of these players with us that have helped spread this message. Well, it's still about another minute. This year at our play campaign, we had several of the clubs had the ability. We had an association with have an association with the National Down Syndrome Society, and how many clubs? 10 clubs. We had inclusion of Down syndrome children at our play event, and it's where we invite most of the time some boys and girls clubs. You know, people when they come out on the field and they get to meet players, active players, and get out on the field, take BP or whatever, and they get to enjoy the atmosphere, see everything that goes on, and it's just a wonderful day. This year, we were one of the teams to be blessed to have the Down syndrome kids with us, and I walked around and was taking tons of video to put on our website. Just proud of it, and some of the parents were there watching it and watching their kids taking batting practice on in Wrigley Field and things of that nature. It was just incredible. One of the moms forgot to take her phone. And I said, well, listen, I'd be happy to take it to you. Give me your take some videos and share me your email address, and I'll send it to you. Sent it to her, and I got an email back the next day, and she responded with, I don't know how to thank you. So thank you for making my child feel no different than anybody else that was on that field. And it kind of funny. She goes, you know what? I've got a neighbor that's really kind of not real nice and brags about her kid all the time and things of that nature. And she said, I had the opportunity to share something with my child and put my child in an equal playing field. And she said, I just want to thank you so much for that opportunity and making me and my child feel like we're no different than anyone else. And that was, may have been it's by far the best email I ever received this year. Anyway, that's my story. Start off with the introductions. I have Curtis Pride here to my immediate right, and Jim Eisenreich to follow. Curtis Pride is a former Major League outfielder who made his Major League debut in 1993 with the Montreal Expos. I used to love going to Montreal. He played with the Expos, Tigers, Red Sox, Braves, Yankees, and Angels. Someone was asking about a Braves player. I hope there you go. You found him, all right. Curtis, who currently serves as Major League Baseball's Disability and Inclusion Ambassador, was born deaf, but always believed he could make it to the major leagues with or without his disability. Curtis is a wonderful example for all children with disabilities who want to pursue careers in and around professional sports. Jim Eisenreich, to Curtis's right, played for 15 seasons. Watched him when I was with the Cardinals. Heard us a few times. 15 seasons in the major leagues with the Twins, Royals, Phillies, Marlins, and Dodgers. During Jim's remarkable career, he hit 52 home runs and had a batting average of almost 300 in 1993. Jim had hit 318 for the Phillies and led the team to the National League led the Phillies to the National League pennant. That was in 1993, correct? Jim has Tourette's syndrome and never let his disability deter him from a successful career in the major leagues. Today, Jim proudly runs the Jim Eisenreich Foundation for Children with Tourette Syndrome. Curtis? Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say I'm honored to be here. Not only to be with you guys, but also to celebrate the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And it is an honor to be able to share my life experience with you guys, what I've gone through. And back in high school, I was drafted by the New York Nest. And at that time, I had already accepted a basketball scholarship to the College of William. And so my parents have always stressed to me the importance of getting an education because there's no guarantee in being a professional athlete, and especially with my disability. And so my dad was able to work out an agreement with the New York Nest where they allowed me to go to college full-time on a basketball scholarship and still be able to play professional baseball in the summer. So I did that. So I did both for the next 4.5 years until I graduated from college with a degree in finance. And then I went on to play professional baseball full-time. And so I played professional baseball for 23 years, including 11 years in the Major League with Montreal Expos, Detroit Tigers, Atlanta Braves, Boston Red Sox, Yankees, and LA Angels. And after I retired in 2008, I became the head baseball coach at Gallaudet University, right here in DC, which is only a few miles from here. And this is my 9th year as the head coach at Gallaudet. And I enjoy coaching, being an inspiration for my friends to encourage them to pursue their dreams and goals, regardless of their disability, hearing disability. And 2 years ago, I was appointed by Major League Baseball to be the ambassador for inclusion with the primary focus on people with disabilities. And my responsibility is to provide guidance and resource for all 30 clubs. It helps me to improve inclusion and accessibility in all levels of baseball, whether it be minor leagues, major leagues, front office, stadium operations, stadiums and stuff, and community. And it's a position that I hold very dearly because I want to see people with disabilities have equal access all across the board. And that's the stuff that I'm really most passionate about. Thank you.
Well, I likewise with Curtis. I'm honored to be here today and speaking on behalf of disabilities and PBATS. I want to thank you guys for inviting us, Neil and all the guys. We share a common bond, and it's not just baseball, but with me, much like Curtis, as a kid, I grew up with Tourette, but did not know it was called Tourette. I was just different. I grew up in central Minnesota, and I'm much older, so back in the 60s and 70s when I was a kid, it was a little. I think it was hard differentiating what I was doing as a behavior problem, and so. But I was like any other kid. I played ball. I went to school. I had a lot of fun. I just had these little quirks that I did. And two of the questions I had, which probably most kids have, were when I got to be an adult, whenever that was, would I be able to get a job? That was, as I went through my, grade school into high school, that was a big question for me. I just wondered if I could have a job. And then the second part of that was could I keep a job, knowing that I did all these things? And I, at that time, had no clue that there was anyone else in my town or really in the world that did what I did. And the other question was, would I ever be able to have a family? That was kind of a dream. Baseball was not even in the area of that, which was a little different for most kids. So as I went through my childhood, not knowing what Tourette was, I also believed I had probably the best support system with my mom and dad. My three brothers and my sister were unbelievable. Didn't ever treat me like I was different, even though they knew and I knew I was. In high school, I had, in my opinion, the best baseball coach ever. Almost like my second dad, and he was just well-spoken, knowledgeable coach that knew baseball, but he also knew life. And then I went to college and had a great coach there. As things kind of turned with baseball, my path was to go to school, get a job, and live a life. I had no clue what it all entailed, but that was what I was on, just like my dad and my brothers. So anyway, I was drafted by the Twins in 1980 after my junior year, 16th round, and it was a big deal. And I really didn't understand the way of professional baseball. I was a Twins fan, and those of you that are old enough, Rod Carew and Harmon Killebrew and Tony Oliva were the guys. Nobody else really mattered. So that's what when I got drafted, it was an unbelievable feeling. So when I was assigned to my first rookie ball team in Elizabethton, Tennessee, I kind of had the questions going to pop up again in my mind. Even though baseball and whatever sport I played was an outlet for most of my childhood, to kind of escape from my symptoms of Tourette, I now began to wonder again, what's it going to be like? Well, I think one thing led to another. I played 2 years in the minor leagues with the Twins and was invited to the big league spring training in 1982. Made the team because another guy got hurt. It's like I started to feel like I don't know if I'm supposed to be a Major League Baseball player to be a player, or because of what's wrong with me, and maybe somewhere down the road we're going to figure it out. Anyway, so I make the team. The Metrodome opens in 1982. I live 85 miles north of there, so I'm pretty much living a dream that I really never thought was ever possible. And so I played and did well, but then I started to miss some time because I became a little bit self-conscious that relief from playing ball was no longer there for me. I came out of games, and you may have heard the story, but eventually got into the hospital a couple times, got the diagnosis of Tourette syndrome. It probably took the better part of 3 or 4 years for me to really accept and to understand what that was. But once I did, it was like one of those questions as a kid was answered. I know that whatever I had, now I know it's called Tourette, I wasn't the only one. There was help. And I think for the first time in my life, I had a huge relief lifted off my shoulders. Kind of fast forward, I honestly, while I was going through the medical stuff, didn't care if I played baseball, even though I played at home, went back to school. Loved to play, and one thing led to another, and I was invited, after I was granted a release from the Twins, to the Royals spring training camp in 1987. My thought was that if I tried and made it, it was all gravy. The one thing I could never live with is if I didn't take the chance and never made it, that would drive me crazy. And I took the chance. And then I make a joke, but I didn't expect another 12 years. And I was very lucky. I had the greatest teammates in Kansas City, and I'll just point out Frank White was one of those guys who welcomed me in the clubhouse and had no reason to. He's still one of my best friends today. Went from the Royals after 6 years to the Phillies. 4 great years with the Phillies, probably the most fun team I had. Went another year with the Marlins, and we won a world championship, and the ring with the real diamond, as they say. You got one of those on, don't you? And then I finished up with the Dodgers, and one of the themes that Mr. Robertson said right away is that there's a loyalty and a commitment. And I think those of us that have something wrong with us in the way of a disability are very committed to making it right for us, and there's a loyalty there too that you're not going to see from what I would call normal people. But anyway, I feel that with my disability and the things that I've been able to do in my life, I felt I felt obligated to encourage young people, and I've done that for most of the last 30 years or 25 years, talking to groups of families with kids that have Tourette, and it kind of runs the whole gamut of a family and a support system. But it's been very, very enjoyable just to see the questions on parents' eyes get answered that, yeah, my kid's going to be okay, you know. And just last night, after the game was over, I get a text from a lady in California that has a senior 18-year-old son who has Tourette, and I've never met him personally, but I've talked to him for 8 years. You know, she's asking me about the game and what I thought of the game, and she gives me the update on her son, and the son just wants to know if he's going to be okay, and the answer is he will. So it's kind of my short version. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you to Mark, Curtis, and Jim. Loved just listening about your personal experience, and again, we're so honored to have you guys here. Thanks for the representation I think that you provide for everyone that needs to understand the ability is there, and certainly a couple of examples, wonderful examples on the stage today. We have a couple other people with us on the stage, and I'm going to introduce them. Going to start with Mark Odom. Mark has been the National Rehabilitation Information has been with the National Rehabilitation Information Center since its earliest days at Catholic University, and has served as its project director since 1987. Funded by ACL's National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, NDEAM is a publicly available hub for research publications and research-based products for the disability, independent living, and rehabilitation fields. It plays in a critical role in translating research findings into programs, products, and services to support people with disability. Following a spinal cord injury as a college student, Mark became a passionate advocate for the burgeoning disability movement and was instrumental in establishing the Disabled Student Services Center at the University of Maryland's College Park campus. He graduated with degrees in journalism and communications. In addition to his NDEAM work, Mark is actively involved in the spinal cord injury community, serving as president of the National Spinal Cord Injury Association for 2 terms from 1986 to 2001. He also serves on accessibility and policy boards for the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens. Mark. Appreciate. So Mark, you're up. If you want to press, yeah, there we go. All right, you're live.
Thank you, Lance. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate it. We at NDEAM see a lot of research on the barriers to employment and the perceptions of employers and hiring managers, what people with disabilities can do or they can't do. And one of the biggest things that NIDLR projects work on is employment. There's probably, I guess, 40 or 50 projects right now on one aspect or another where we're trying to address some of the important parts that Lance brought up with his opening talk. Certainly, we talked about Project Search, which is a big project down at VCU that does a lot of work. Return to Work is a big piece. We're trying to get folks to get back into the workplace after being injured or being hurt. These are all just giant challenges that we're trying to meet. I know that slowly but surely folks with disabilities are being employed. I saw there's a report, the NTIDE report, that just came out for the 18th straight month. The unemployment statistics have been going down for folks with disabilities. So our work is being done. The jobs are getting done. Folks with disabilities are getting jobs. That's not to say that it isn't easy. Some of the big challenges that we still try to work on is that getting employers to understand that, of course, hiring folks with disabilities is a positive. But not only that, but even workplace accommodations are easy. So many times we hear a question about, I want to hire this person, but I'm worried about how much it will cost to do this or that. And frequently, and there is a lot of research, and we have a lot of it, that it is a very, the cost of accommodations is very inexpensive. especially given the return and the long-range return. So those are the pieces. Lance, you also talked about the challenge just to get access and transportation. It's an important piece out there. I think it's probably a little understudied. More and more we're working on it, and I see more reports. But it's hard to work if you can't get to the job. So that's another place where we need to do some work. I think the final piece is, as we talked about me being with NARIC for a while and being around the challenges of maintaining good health. You know, as you get older and you're going to work, you want to maintain a good health. And working helps you with your health, but at the same time, you have to look after yourself in order to continue working. So those are some of the challenges that we've seen, Lance, come across the board that we're answering, that NIDR's answering, and NARIC is certainly helping send out information on.
All right, a round of applause for Mark. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I'm really delighted to introduce the wonderful lady sitting to Mark's left, Jennifer Shee, who is going to help us moderate a panel discussion. But let me tell you a little bit about her before we get started into the panel discussion. Jennifer is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Disability Employment Policy at the U.S. Department of Labor. Jennifer advises the Secretary of Labor and internal agencies on how departmental policies impact people with disabilities and actively supports the agency's signature issues, including integrated employment, accessible technology, federal employment, and federal contractor efforts to recruit and retain people with disabilities. Prior to ODEP, Jennifer spent 10 years in a variety of roles at the U.S. Department of Education and held positions with the Presidential Task Force on Employment of Adults with Disabilities and the National Organization on Disabilities. She's received many civic and achievement awards, including the Accenture Women in Government Rising Leader Award, and was named to the National Spinal Cord Injury Association Hall of Fame. So, round of applause for Jennifer. And then we want Jennifer to kick off the round of questions. So Jennifer, the microphone is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Lance, and we're really thrilled to be here today. It's not often us policy wonks get to talk about something as fun as baseball, and it's certainly attracted a whole new audience to us and our work, and here today, including my amazing father. So I don't think we would see a lot of people here if we weren't talking about baseball. So I'm going to jump right into it and ask the first question of both Curtis and Jim. And Curtis, you can go first, but were there people like the owners of the team or a coach or a trainer or someone that really helped you figure out how to manage your disability while you were performing at that kind of national professional baseball level?
Yeah, when I first started playing professional baseball and with the Mets, and a lot of the coaches were aware of my disability and how I relived the 90s, and then they need to face me when they talk to me because they understand that if they walk around, move around, I might miss out on what they're saying. So, but throughout my career, I've had great coaches who have been, keenly aware of my, my situations, how I need to face them when they talk to me or talk to the group. I always make sure that I stand in front of the group, in front of the team, so that way I'm right in front of the coach. If there was any issues or problems that I did not understand, that I would ask one of my teammates who would take the time after the lecture and after the meeting or whatever to kind of figure out, kind of clarify some of the things that the coach might have said. Or I would just meet with the coach individually, ask him to repeat what was he talking about and stuff. It's never been any issue. As far as playing the field, I've never had any communication problem with, because while playing the outfield, we had a very simple anytime there's a fly ball, 'cause I play outfield, anytime there's a fly ball, and if I call for it, it's my ball all the way, no matter when. And so I have to use my judgment to see who's the better position to catch the ball. Now, if I call for it, it's mine. Now, if the fielder wants to call for it, he would have to wave me off. I would say the thing, I know it's his ball, I'll just watch for the glove day. I got it. I know he's got it. But otherwise, if I call for it, better back off. But no, I played for 23 years. I've never had a collision. No, knock on the wood. But I remember when I was in minor league, and there was the issue where I was hitting. I was in the batters box, and the umpires were not aware of my, hearing disability. And what happened was I was facing a really tough left-handed pitcher. I was with the experts at the time, and we were playing against the Braves, and there was a tough left-handed by the name of Pedro Bonbon, and he threw 95 miles per hour. He's left-handed. Of course, I'm bad left-handed, so I'm sitting in the batter's box, and he threw a high fastball up and in, coming right in my head. So I tried to duck, and the ball hit my helmet. He ricocheted all the way to the back, so knocked me down to the ground. Okay, I got hit by a pitch, so I got him, rushed myself, and I started walking, jogging towards the first base. And all of a sudden, I see the first base umpire call time, started pointing back to the home plate, and I was kind of confused, like, what's going on? Why is he pointing back to the home plate? So I turned around, and I saw the home plate umpire motioning me, say, get back to the batter's box, call it foul ball. And I'm thinking, how can it be a foul ball? It's stop, he had the ball hit my helmet. So I'm walking towards the home plate umpire, and of course he had the mask on his face, and I relived. And I asked him, how's it possible? How's the foul ball? The ball hit my helmet, and he started mumbling with his mask on. I couldn't understand what he said. So I asked him politely, can you remove the mask so I can read the lip? And I don't know if he misunderstood me or he refused to take his mask off his face. And of course, the emotional side of me was like frustrated, trying to figure out what's going on. That kid left-handed approximately almost tore my head off. So I literally reached over, pulled the mask off his face to read his lip. And I realized what he's done. And at that moment, so I let it go. And because he had the elastic band, he attached to that, so when I let it go, it popped right back to his face. And the umpire goes, you're out of the game. I said, no. It was a huge misunderstanding. And everybody saw me. Both teams were literally on the ground laughing. Could not believe what they just witnessed. And so my manager comes running over. Oh, no, it's a misunderstanding. He's deaf. He couldn't hear you. And the umpire did not believe I was deaf. So I had to take my helmet to show him my hearing aid. And of course, he was kind of upset about the whole thing with the embarrassing. And so my manager was able to convince him to let me back in the game. This was all misunderstanding. So he had the umpire had a conference with the first base umpire to decide if they should let me back in. So he reluctantly let me back in the game, but I still had it back. So I'm in the batter's box. The very next pitch, I had 2 strikes on me, and Pedro threw this about a foot outside of the plate. They call it strike 3. Talk about payback. And but to show you the misunderstanding, but then the words have spread. The longer I played professional baseball, the more people heard about me and how you communicate with me, stuff, it became easier. And there was a whole lot of accommodations that they needed to have to be able to communicate with me. So I'll be very blessed to have had good quality coaches, not only coaches, but teammates, and who have been very supportive.
That's great. Thank you. And Jim, how about you? Did you have people instrumental to helping you navigate all this with your disability and at your high level of baseball?
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I started with the twins, and I still hadn't been diagnosed. So I didn't know the name or the term or whatever, Tourette syndrome. And so when I first got to the Twins, I played 2 years in the minor leagues, but the minor leagues, don't have a lot of people there, and so there wasn't a lot of knowledge about what I was doing and the noises and things. So when I got to the big leagues in '82, right away they noticed what I was doing. When I started having issues, then it was automatically assumed that I was either afraid of the crowds or afraid of the stage or claustrophobic. Whatever phobia was available then, that's what I had. And but the kind of the really good thing, they did whatever they could to help me. Whether it was Dick Martin, the old trainer from the Twins, or if it was the actual owner, the doctors, even some of my teammates were trying to be kind of empathetic and not really knowing what's going on because I was playing well. And so even though there were some criticisms of the Twins for the way they thought they treated me, I really felt it was the road for my health. It was the way I was going to start to get my health back. And so I couldn't thank them enough. So they did everything they could, trying to help me do that. And putting me in a hospital, running every physical test known to man and doing every other kind of therapy too that they had available. And so that was the initial start for me that actually got me to that diagnosis of having Tourette syndrome.
Wow, I love hearing these types of stories. It's kind of amazing that they translate to the baseball field and to the workplace as well. The next question is for Mark. How did you decide that this was important, and what do you think your focus, your PBATS focus on disability inclusion does for the rest of the country and people that find out about that?
Can I see this one kind of reference back to it? Thank you. First and foremost, I think that the inclusion is just something that's right, flat out right. I mean, and if we can have a say or be a platform that can get that message out more and more, then that's our duty. And I don't know how to say any simpler than that. It's the right thing to do, and inclusion is it's just a God-given right. For me, it was where I've kind of taken upon some of the thoughts that with my position and within our PBATS, is I had a son that my oldest son had a pretty significant behavioral disorder, ADHD and things of that nature, and traveled quite a bit. As we all know, the travel and how tough the travel is, and really watched my wife go through that and found some incredible people to help us with our oldest son, and he's doing phenomenal. And then, had another challenge with our other son, and it was time for me to be home, and the Cubs were gracious enough to put me in this position. But I think because of those things, it put me in a position where for so long in my career, and I think most of the guys up here, we've talked so much about the impact that the game does have on other people, but it does have on us. I think that, I just lost my train of thought real quick, but we just have an incredible opportunity to make a difference and get away from and be a platform, and as we went through this, it just became such an easy avenue and such a wonderful thing to give back. And for me, when I moved into this director's role and got off the field, the sole purpose of it, and when my wife and I made the decision to stay in the game, and it was, and I'll be polite to you too right now, people ask a lot of times why, how do you deal with these guys making, when you see this wealth, this incredible wealth that these guys make. And I said, it's amazing. They're not, it's wealth, but they drive nice cars to the ballpark and they live in huge homes, but they have the same problems that we all have. And they're people. And for me, it turned into a situation where I didn't want to have to worry about the health, the physical health of the players, of 25 guys, and the stress of getting that back. I wanted to worry about or I wanted to put my the rest of my career and dedicate it towards giving back and providing, trying to be a resource and really giving back to the game what the game had given to us.
Well, we're really grateful you're putting your energy behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. We're going to shift to the other side of the panel and talk to Mark Odom for a second. Mark, got a question for you about your involvement with the spinal cord injury community and, of course, NDEAM. You're working to improve employment opportunities, of course, for people with disabilities. What are the biggest challenges at present as you see them?
Lance, I think the biggest thing is education. We have employers, they want to do the right thing. They really do. I think people with disabilities, they want jobs. So everybody here wants the same thing. We want this goal to work, but yet we still are far away from the goals that we set. And it comes down to employers need better education on what the workforce can do, what they bring to the table, and how not only is it a good thing to do, but the right thing to do. And it is an improvement on their product in the long run. The diversity of it all, bringing all of the different minds together. So educating the employers and having them, help them buy in, to take the next step. It's almost like, again, they want to do the right thing, but they're not quite too sure which way to go about doing it. So education on that side. Education on the side of the people with disabilities is, how do you go about setting yourself in the right place to take advantage of the opportunity? You have the skills, you know you can do the job. What do you do to get your foot in that door? How do you take that step forward? We have a lot of programs now with mentorship, which helps that out quite a bit. I think we have programs where self-employment is now being talked about as an option to being employed and moving forward with that. Transitioning people from school to work. We're now at a point where everybody that has gone to school from IDA on has been mainstreamed, and they've been in schools with everyone else. And now they get to add to high school and they get a graduate. Now they're into that competitive employment stage, and what do they need to do to take that transition to that? So it's the education on both sides. And I think that there's a lot of research out there. Certainly NDEAM sees a lot of research. There's a lot of research going on at NIDER and ACL. So that data and that information is there. It's just getting it out to the people and getting them better educated.
Excellent, excellent. A quick follow-up then, you kind of referenced this a bit, Mark, but what do you see as far as advances are concerned? Are there programs that are successful in helping people with disabilities succeed in competitive integrated employment, or in efforts to help employers to be a little more supportive and inclusive?
I think along the same sort of lines, certainly the mentorship pieces have been doing very well. You have someone that you can walk in their footsteps or even be guided along with that. Just moving the employment service providers from shelter workshop employment and recreational services to integrated inclusive programs. We're not far from that. I think in some ways I'm really excited because so many good things are happening. As I said before, the research shows that the employment rates are going down, unemployment rates are going down slowly, but they are going down. And it is a matter of just persistence, continuing on.
So, and with that in mind, Curtis, you were named MLB's Ambassador of Inclusion. That's a big job. What does it entail?
Well, I'm honored to be appointed to be the Major League Baseball Ambassador for Inclusion. And, they've never had anyone, they're focused on people with disabilities in all aspects of baseball. And I took that as the responsibility to help SDK, help all 13 clubs, not only all 13 clubs, but also Major League Baseball, to find ways to improve inclusion and accessibility in all levels of baseball. whether it be minor league, major league, front office, stadium operation, stadium. Right now, a lot of people got a big project, which is to renovate the website, the ADA page on every club website, and to get them to provide as much information about the stadium accessibility, so that way people with disability can become more comfortable in going to the ballpark, be able to enjoy the baseball game just as much as any other fan. And yeah, that's why people got right now. It's a long process, but it's. I try to get involved with the community. I try to encourage clubs to have more camps, clinics, especially with PBATS. We wanted to have clinics for children with disabilities on the baseball field, so that way they feel like they're a part of the atmosphere and be able to experience just like a real major leaguer. And I think that was the point, because you cannot even imagine how be that type of environment we do for kids with disabilities, because it gives them a sense of self-confidence, knowing that they can achieve whatever goals they want to accomplish. I have many different resources that I work with, but that's.
Well, we're really grateful that you have the weight of Major League Baseball behind you and your example really changing attitudes in ways we could never, ever do that. And Jim, your work, can you describe some of your work with the Foundation for Children with Tourette's Syndrome?
Yeah, kind of in a nutshell, what I've done is, because of the help that I received as a kid and all through my childhood, and then into baseball, when I left baseball, being able to come back, and just being able to have real positive experiences, help, and getting the chance to play a game that I loved as a kid, knowing that the questions my mom and dad had when I was a kid, there are so many families now that have the same questions. And they just want to know the same simple answers. Will my kid be okay? Is he going to be able to get a job? Is he going to be able to go to school? And those are the things that we always question. So when the Royals first got me back from being retired for a couple years, they jumped right on me asking if I wanted to meet with families, in the local Kansas City area. And yeah, I'd love to talk to them, and there were kids that had Tourette, because now we know others had it too. And I always say this, an obligation, not because it was supposed to be, but it was the greatest feeling in the world to actually talk to a family and see the parents' eyes light up when they saw me, and I could tell them that I was doing the same things their child was doing when I was their age. It's like, okay, you're going to be okay, and when I first started that, I was wearing a uniform. When I was done playing Major League Baseball, I didn't wear a uniform, but I felt like it was still, it was healthy for me to do that. It was a benefit to me too, even though now my focus was on helping them get those answers before they had to go through some of the stuff that I did. And so that's what we do. My foundation is based on awareness and to be a resource for these children and families to get the help and answers that they're looking for. And that's basically what we do.
Well, they're very, very lucky to have you doing that.
I'm lucky to have them too, and all of you.
That's awesome, Jim. Yeah, thank you. Round of applause. Good job. Yeah. It's, being aware of time, let's wrap up with one more question, really for all the panelists. If you could maybe just take a quick minute and share with us your thoughts about advice that you would give youth with disabilities who are thinking about future employment. And then the second part of that question, what about employers? What advice do you have to them for hiring and advancing people with disabilities? So kind of a two-part question. We'll start with Mark. Be sure to turn your microphones on. Thank you.
I've thought a lot about this, how to make a difference. you know, I've sat down with our community relations people, our human resources department to discuss, you know, things that we could do, potential hires that we could make even within our sports medicine team. I think more importantly, I think is just spreading the word that the opportunity is there, and as both Curtis and Jim have mentioned, you have to believe in that dream. And I just think that you just believe until you can't believe. And we get so many questions from people. We get calls over and over from people when they know what you do. You know, hey, my son's got a shoulder problem, who do I need to go see or whatever. And we're always giving advice to people in the community. And what's amazing is you know, I got a phone call actually yesterday from a mother whose son's going through some pretty rough transitional changes in his life, and part of the resources that I've come up with outside of just an orthopedic or a thoracic surgeon or someone like that we normally use is now I have no problem recommending or giving them names of people that can help them advance, you know, through, you know, whether it be, you know, whatever form of disability it may be. But I think the biggest part is to speak and to talk and to get it out there and have answers when people do come to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
With respect to youth with disability, I've always encouraged them to set goals for themselves, you know, to believe in themselves no matter what their disability is. They should always know that they're capable of doing whatever they want to do as long as they set their minds to work hard. And they also have to believe that there are people there that will be there to help them, you know, achieve their goals. Just like for me, when I was a kid, I had my parents. I've had wonderful teachers, wonderful classmates, coaches that helped me, you know, reach my goal to be a major leaguer. And you know, it's just a matter of putting the time in, work hard, and staying, you know, having faith. And I remember when I started playing professional baseball, and I didn't realize the impact I have on the kids with disability. And because I was more of an example to them, to show that, hey, you've got a guy who has a hearing disability, and he's playing, you know, professional baseball, major league, and that sort of inspired them to do the same thing. And I remember I had a letter, a fan mail, I received from a guy named Andy from a small town in Kansas. And he first wrote me a letter saying that he struggled with his deafness, and that he didn't know what he wanted to do in life because people would have a tendency to look at him differently because of his disability. But after hearing my story, how I achieved a lot to be able to reach my goal of being a professional baseball player, it sort of inspired him. And now, and he wrote me a letter saying that he thanked me for being an inspiration for him. And now he's got that renewed confidence in himself, and that he's working hard to be a newspaper writer. He could go to college and be a newspaper writer. That was his dream. So I think it's important to share that message with everybody, regardless of their disability. They can do whatever they want to do as long as they put their minds to it and not worry about what other people say or think. And as far as the employers, I would tell them to be more open-minded. That's the problem. People have a tendency to be closed-minded and not giving people with disability the opportunity to show them what they can do. It's not about what they cannot do. It's about what can they do and how they can be very productive in the workforce. Believe it or not, I've heard a lot of great stories how people with disability are much more motivated once you show them their worth, you know, their workforce. And so that's the big thing. And so I think one of the best ways to do is to share success stories with all the employees, showing them, hey, we've got people with disabilities having a lot of success in working for this employee, you know, working for this company, and that the employees should share that story with other potential employees so they can see the huge benefit of having employees with disabilities. Okay, next.
And I would kind of echo what Mark and Curtis just said too about advice for kids. They're good at something, and I believe that we all have a couple of traits. We all have something that we don't like about ourselves, physical or psycho, whatever it is. We also are very good at something. We have an ability, and I would encourage the kids to just to believe in that, follow their dreams. And you never know. I tell a lot of kids that play youth baseball that, you might become a Major League Baseball player sometimes, or someday, and then maybe not. Maybe you do something a lot better, and just, they need encouragement. And I do think, there's a dream for every kid, and they don't have to figure it out when they're 10 or 15 or 20. Sometimes they don't figure it out at all, and they go through just tremendously. But you follow what you like to do, and I just think the encouragement and the support of guys like these, the PBATS group, organizations, and whatever local group you have in your area. As far as advice for employers, my opinion is to kind of have them look outside the traditional box. There's a lot of people that have ability that, maybe in the past haven't been looked at as a potential employee, just because of their disability, whatever that may be. And I just, kind of again, what everyone else has said, it's, there's so much ability that people have, and employers can really benefit from that commitment and loyalty that someone with a disability can really, benefit their company or whatever it is. So, thank you.
Well, I'm batting cleanup here, I guess. I certainly agree with all of the people on the panel. I think sports is a metaphor. Keep your head on a swivel. Look for those opportunities. They are out there. Personally, I'll give you an example that. When I was at the University of Maryland, I was working, I was on the Disabled Student Services Committee and giving a testimony to the Board of Trustees and this is back in the 70s where the Rehab Act was just signed and the universities were just trying to figure out where they were going with these programs. No one had heard of the ADA or anything. And I gave my testimony and very honest about what was on campus. It was College Park, completely inaccessible place. In fact, I was told by a number of staff members that I was the second person to graduate from College Park in a wheelchair, full-time student. So it was a pretty difficult place to go. But I gave my testimony and didn't think anything of it. The next day I get a call from the Washington Capitals. Well, lo and behold, the president of the Washington Capitals sat on the Board of Trustees and was so impressed. He wanted to reach out and say, come on, we got something for you. So you never know where that opportunity is. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep looking out there. They are out there. And for employees, at the same time, keep looking. There are a lot of resources out there. One of the things that talking about the ADA that NIDLR funds is the ADA centers. There's 10 regional centers out there that all can be reached by an 800 number that have a wealth of information about the ADA and what you can use in the ADA to help yourself as an employer to bring in more people to work there. So at the same time, employers can look for those opportunities just as well.
What I'd like to add, some disabilities are more visible than others. I obviously can applaud people that will stand up and have the confidence to speak about what their experiences have been. Another spokesman of ours is a guy named Jim Abbott, who has a much more visible disability. I think, those of us that have contact with people that can influence people, I think we need to continue to pull down those walls and help support those people in becoming more and more visible. But, disabilities come in many ways, and like you said, the umpire didn't recognize that you had to, rip his face off with the mask. But I think everybody that turned on the TV knew that Jim Abbott had a disability. So I think making sure that we look at every resource.
Okay, so we are in the bottom of the ninth
Yeah.
for our event today, and we do want to tell you a little bit about some of these public service announcements that our Office of Disability Employment Policy did with the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, and really it was led very much by our wonderful partnership with Neil Romano, who was mentioned before, who is also our former assistant secretary. So we're really, really grateful that he introduced us and really made this connection happen. As I said before, it is just not possible for us to reach most of the people that Major League Baseball and your organization can reach. And we, in our office, we do have tremendous resources to, in particular, for employers and employees, our EARN, our Employer Assistance Resource Network for Disability Inclusion, and the Job Accommodation Network. Any question you have can be answered by those two resources, and they're represented here today too. We're really grateful for the partnership with the Administration for Community Living, and we do everything we do with partners because we are a small policy government agency. So we always want to recognize the big, important role that our partners play. So we're going to show you two of our public service ads that we did with PBATS. And one features our guest, Curtis Pride, and he's showing some of his amazing batting behind him as he's talking. And the other features Bo Jackson. And one of the scenes is of Bo Jackson running up a wall, literally sideways, to catch a pitch or to catch a ball. And they do co-brand with PBATS and ODEP, direct you to our resources and to the PBATS opportunity section of their website, pbats.com/opportunity. So we would encourage all of you to go to the websites and check out for yourself some of the resources that can really help you and your little leaguers, or your employees, or your bosses if they need it as well. So let's see the first PSA.
In 1888, Willie Point became among the first known major leaguer with a disability. Deaf from birth, many people believe that the hand signals used in baseball today were in part designed to accommodate Mr. Hoy. The history of Major League Baseball is full of players with disability who were accepted for their talent regardless of their disability. I know, I'm Curtis Pride. Like Mr. Hoy, I was born deaf, and I played the majors for 11 years because baseball judged me for my arm, my speed, and my desires to play the game. People with disability have a lot to offer your workplace. All they want is the opportunity to prove their talent.
For more information on how you can get involved, please visit pbats.com/opportunity.
Won't you give them that opportunity? In 1888, Willie Point became among the first known major leaguer with a disability. Deaf from birth, many people.
And now we'll pull up the next one, Bo Jackson.
But there's a lot more to me. As a child, I struggled with speech impediment. Thankfully, sports has let people see me for what I could do. But for 57 million Americans with disabilities, they've often been judged for what they can't do. And it's not fair. Consider people for their abilities. You'll be surprised. People think they know Bo because they've seen the highlights. But there's a lot more to me. As a child, I struggled with speech impediment. Thankfully, sports has let people see me for what I could do. But for 57 million Americans with disabilities, they've often been judged for what they can't do. And that's not fair. Consider people their abilities. You'll be surprised. People think they know both because they...
Well, I think those are pretty great. And of course, you also know by now people with disabilities are very flexible. So we can, we can roll with it when we don't get sound the way we want to, right, Curtis? So now we have a surprise special presentation for our guests from PBATS and our former Assistant Secretary Neil Romano, who I'd like to invite to the stage, please. As I mentioned, we just can't say enough about the kindness and the energy and just the drive that this person and this organization has to really promote inclusion and the best aspects of people with disabilities and what we can do for businesses, whether they are offices, labs, or diamonds, and for their owners and employers. So I do want to invite my colleague Carol Dunlap to present to each of them. You can bring them all out, Carol. To present to each of them a token of our appreciation, a crystal home plate. Hey, I think we're driving this metaphor into the ground at this point now, but it's co-branded with Administration for Community Living and the Office of Disability Employment Policy, and it says this is presented for partnership and exemplary service on behalf of people with disabilities. So thank you very much for all you do.
All right. Very good. One more baseball metaphor. We are in extra innings. We're about 5 minutes over our allotted time, but I think this has been wonderful. Jennifer, again, thank you so much for the great work your agency does, and thank you to each panel member, just the insight you provided, the personal stories, how you really drove home for all of us the value of your experiences and how that connects to such an opportunity-rich society we hope to all encourage and create for people with disabilities and the roles that they can certainly have of great impact as we move forward. So again, just so delighted that you joined us today. We are, again, just honored to have had your presence. And with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.